Suddenly, a cape appears on your back. Maybe a tiara forms in your head. Or you're wearing a black mask and a bulletproof suit and you go, hiya! Whoosh! You have dove into a world where you are a superhero. You have all these amazing powers and you are saving the world. In that moment, you feel happy, you feel strong, you feel powerful, you feel ambitious, and suddenly your mom walks into the room. And everything just goes poof. Well, we don't like this feeling much, do we? We don't like our superpowers being stripped away from us. But what can you do? It's the real life, right? And it's not possible to have superpowers in real life. Well, what if it was possible? How many of you here would want to become a superhero and save the world? I know I would, and I can see a lot of superhero aspirants here. So, let me make a very bold statement that it is in fact possible to have superpowers in real life. And all of us can become superheroes and save the world. We learn how by cracking the superhero code. But before we go into the cracking, we must first really believe that it is possible to have superpowers in real life. And in order for us to really believe in something, we must see an example, a story that proves that it is in fact real. So let me share an origin story with you. Origin story of a superhero called Pico the Great. Now the story starts at a nursery classroom. Little Pico is sitting at the back. His eyes are red, his face is swollen, he's crying. He feels pressurized and underconfident around so many other children. He suddenly pushes the table away and runs to the classroom door at full speed. Cut to the next day. Little Pico and his mom is walking towards the school. His eyes are red again, his face is swollen again, and he's crying out his loudest, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. Cut to a few years later. Pico is now in class 10th, and it's the physics period. And the physics teacher has decided to take a surprise quiz. Now, physics was Pico's favorite subject, and he knew all the answers. Yet, he was trying to hide behind a friend. He was trying to hide behind the desk. He was trying his best to avoid the teacher's eye contact because he was afraid that if the teacher sees him, he has to go in front of the whole class and speak. Cut to the next period. It's the PT period. Everybody is playing, enjoying. Pico is still sitting at the back, trying to hide from everyone. Now Pico has always been a chubby child. And he thought that his physicality is his greatest weakness. And some of his classmates made the situation even worse by giving him nicknames like Pico the Giant Planet. Now all this combined have made Pico look at himself as a very weak, underconfident individual. Cut to 3 years later. Pico is now in college. He was sitting at the cafeteria eating lunch, and suddenly one of his friends comes running in with a ticket to a science exhibition in his hand. And he says, dude, we are showcasing our project idea in this exhibition and you are presenting. Well, Pico, hearing that, goes, what are you saying? Like, this is like speaking in front of people. I can't do it. I'm too scared. And his friend replies, why are you so scared? I mean, you are best at English amongst all of us, and you speak very well in front of us. Pico replies, well, speaking in front of you is different. This is like on stage. So many people will be looking at me. I get very nervous. Dude, don't pull me into this. Then his friend makes a final statement. Dude, I have already purchased the ticket. It cost me $100. This is drawn and this is not refundable. So you are performing. Well, Pico reluctantly agrees. Cut to the science exhibition. Pico gathers all the courage that he had, goes up on stage, and somehow finishes the presentation. Now the judge of the science exhibition was a wise old scientist, and she was impressed by Pico and his team's performance. So she invites them all to a dinner party at her mansion. Cut to the wise old scientist's mysterious mansion. Everybody was having dinner in the dining room. Pico finishes his dinner first, goes to wash his hand. While he was coming back, his eyes land on a very peculiar object. It was a locket, and it appears to have been glowing red from inside. Now Pico was weirdly attracted towards that locket. He goes near and puts the locket on. As he puts the locket on, he faints. The next time his eyes open up, he's back at his room. Still a little bit dizzy, somehow gets up, goes to the washroom. But when he looks at the mirror, he couldn't believe himself. He was looking at a version of himself that he only dreamt of, and the locket was still on. Well, Pico somehow wraps his mind around all this, gets dressed and goes to college because it's NKSR's class and he's very strict. Now in the next 2 days, Pico realized that along with the locket, he has also picked up a peculiar power. Now, he was able to influence people. He was able to convince people to do what he says. He was able to command any situation. Now, Pico, who has always been a very shy individual, had no idea what to do with all these powers. So he decides to do something that he always wished someone else did for him. He makes a group in his college. And the motive of the group was to teach people effective ways of communication, to show people how to express themselves confidently in front of other people. Well, one day, this group gets an opportunity to host one of the biggest events in Pico's college. Now, by this time, Pico has been on the stage several times. So he decides that the opportunity to deliver the introductory speech should go to someone else. So he nominates one of his teammates. Cut to the event day. His teammate goes up on stage, starts the speech at a very good pace. But after 10 seconds, he was standing on the podium blank. Because he has finally looked up and realized how many people were looking at him. And that pressure had made him forget everything. Now Pico, looking at all this, realized that he has to do something quick. So he goes up on stage, he consoles his teammate, then he does something very surprising. He takes off his magic locket and puts it on his teammate. Then he asks the teammate to go down, have some water, and then come back up. Now, there's still this awkward silence to break. But Pico was standing on the stage for the very first time without his magic locket. And he has returned back to his original self. But he has been on the stage so many times by now that he knew that if he somehow goes to the podium and starts speaking, he might be able to pull this off. So he does just that. And he pulls off a good show. Now after 5 minutes, his teammate gets back up. Pico offers his stage back to his teammate. Now, who has the magic locket and all the confidence in the world, puts up a great show. The end. Now, do you think that the story of Pico the Great is real? I mean, most likely not, right? Because mysterious mansions, magic lockets, wise old scientists. Well, I think your opinion might change when you meet Pico. So this is Pico in nursery. This is Pico in class 10th. And this is Pico today. The story of Pico the Great is my story. The story of running away from the nursery classroom is my oldest memory. In fact, the name Pico is my childhood nickname. And I have been embarrassed about this nickname for the longest time. And I just announced it to the world today. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, well, okay, so you became a good public speaker. But then how does that make you a superhero? Well, we'll get into that part. But first, I think all of you have a question. What about the magic locket? Is the magic locket real? Well, the magic locket is red. No, the magic locket is not real. In fact, I made quite a few creative changes in the story. First of all, it was not a science competition, it was a debate competition. And it was a solo competition. And yes, one of my friends bought the ticket for me because he saw a potential in me that even I couldn't. And I'm glad that he did. There was no wise old scientist, but there was my teacher, Upasana ma'am, who guided me throughout my way. There was no magic locket, but there was a magic formula. And the formula is called practice. See, the first time I went up on stage, I was terrified. The second time I went up on stage, I was terrified. About the 50th time I went up on stage, I was still terrified. But I knew I could pull this off. Even today, before coming onto the stage, my mom knows I was terrified. But now I know that I can pull off a good show. Because practice is like a boomerang. It always comes back, and it can give you powers that you never imagined. Now let's get back to the question of how does all this make me a superhero? This is a personal growth. Well, that takes us to what I do today. See, our world do not have extraterrestrial threats like Thanos. I mean, no one is coming in and snapping their fingers so that 50% of us disappear, at least as of now. But we do have some real threats, like climate change and nature loss. So what I do today is I work with an international organization called Worldwide Fund for Nature, where I use my superpower to educate and inspire young minds like yours to take action for conservation. I use my superpower to fight the real villains. Now, let's move on to the part where we become a superhero. Well, I know all of you are waiting for this. Well, to talk about this, I would use one of my favorite methods, the golden circle. Well, the golden circle always asks us, why? I mean, the story I just told you, that's of a personal achievement. And I am fighting for a cause. But all that can happen without assigning a superhero persona to myself. Then why are we taking the superhero route? Why do we want to become a superhero? Because superheroes give us a very special power. It gives us the power of belief. When you assign yourself to a superhero, you feel more confident. When you assign yourself to a superhero, you perform better. Well, it's not just me who is saying that. It's backed up by science. In 2016, a very interesting study was conducted by Rachel White and Stephanie Carlson. And it is popularly known as the Batman effect. So what they did was, they took a group of children, divided them into further 3 groups, and they gave instructions to each group. The first group was told to refer to themselves as who they are in the first person. The second group was told to refer to themselves in the third person. And the last group was told to refer to themselves as characters like Batman, Dora the Explorer. So they gave some tasks to all these groups. By the end of the study, they found out that the group 1 had the most amount of difficulties. They faced the most amount of challenges. The second group performed a little bit better, but the third group performed the best. Because they believed in themselves more, they were more confident in taking action, and they can look beyond their obstacles. Amy Cuddy in her TED Talk says how posing like Wonder Woman can increase our dominance hormone and can decrease our stress hormone. Well, now we have the why clear. Let's move on to the question of the hour. How to become a superhero? Well, here's where we crack the code. So to crack any code, we must first look at the big picture. Then we break it down into pieces, and then we try to find a pattern. Well, let's do that to our keyword here, superhero. So if we break this down, there are 2 words, super and hero. Well, let's take out the word super first. Now the word super is here because of the different superpower these guys have. Now what is a superpower? A superpower is the ability to do something extraordinary. Now let's take Spider-Man for example. Spider-Man can climb walls, can throw a web, can swing between buildings. Can you help me do this? Well, yes. If we practice skills like parkour and rock climbing, if we have some tools like ropes and carabiners, we can still do this. Superman can fly, Superman can move boulders, Superman can shoot lasers. And you and me can also do this. Humans do all that. So what is the difference? What is the difference between movies and real life? What is the difference between movies and real life and So what is the difference between movies and real life? Well, in movies, they get the power through magic or fictional science, and they get the power instantly. In real life, however, you need to use your creativity to build tools, and you need to put your time to practice a skill that becomes your power. Well, now we have the super part here. Now let's go to our next word, hero. Well, who is a hero? It's very hard to define who a hero is because it depends on the story. A hero should be able to do the right thing. Well, how can you know what is the right thing if you don't know the story? Well, to crack this code, what I did was I read through a lot of comic books, which was fun. I watched a lot of movies, which was even more fun. And I read through a lot of success stories. And believe me, the third one was the most fun of all. And I found out that there are 4 attributes in common when it comes to a hero. The first attribute is a hero should be able to take initiatives. A hero should be able to take action. The second one is a hero should have unwavering faith on the cause he or she is fighting for. The third one here is a hero should have empathy. This is what makes heroes realize what others are going through and fight for them. The fourth one here is a hero should be able to get back up every time. Well, now we have the hero part clear as well. Now let us take on the last question, which is the what. I know a lot of you might be thinking, then what is my superpower? What is going to be my superhero story? Well, I leave this question to you. Your superhero story can be whatever you choose. But I'll just tell you this one last thing. Our world today needs superheroes more than ever. It needs us to step up with our superpower and put our hands on the deck to fight the real villains of climate change and nature loss. Thank you.